Hello, my name is James, I'm the Mayor of Jamestown, and as of yesterday, Persona 5 Strikers was released in UK and Europe as far as I'm aware. Don't know why it took us an extra 2 weeks to get it, but here it is. As I found out while playing, there are two graphic settings on consoles, at least on PS4 anyway, which is an amazing inclusion, but I wanted to see what the difference would be between them. So if we go down here, we've got frame rate and we've got graphic. So I'm going to quickly do a quick video comparison of the two, see how things are, and then go from there. Starting with graphic. So, starting with the graphic setting, I'm just going to have a quick look at the character model. I don't see anything untoward. He looks nice, looks shiny. I've heard reports of people saying on Framerate they look a little bit more pixely, but I can't really say I agree. Let's just do some basic moves. All look pretty solid. Now the one true test is going to be combat. Now, this is one of the first sort of instances in the game where you actually come across like a bunch of shadows to actually fight. You actually come across a fair amount. And I was intrigued to see what the frame rate is like during this segment where they spawn so many different people for you. But from my initial viewing, doesn't seem too bad. I will say it does feel not as smooth as Framerate does. But honestly, it's kind of hard to tell much of a difference at this stage, but that's where the comparison comes in. Still looks just as good. I see no issues with the visuals. Frame rate still seems pretty solid. I mean, later in the game could definitely be a lot more variant, I suppose. I'm also going to try and do a cut-by-cut comparison of how it all works and looks, but from what I can tell, graphics doesn't really have that much of the graphic setting anyway doesn't seem to have that much of an impact on the gameplay with high levels of characters, at least not from my initial viewing anyway. So let's have a quick look at frame rate. Now we've got the frame rate setting on, and honestly, oh, he's invisible. I don't see much of a difference. When I was changing between graphics and frame rate settings, honestly, barely saw any difference in the character model. But I'll do a cut-by-cut comparison after this to really see if there's any significant difference. Oh, before I go into battle, let's see if the animations look any worse. I'd argue not really. I don't see, like, maybe slightly less flare, but it's really hard to complain about. Right, now we're in the combat. Let's see how things are. Honestly, it feels a little bit smoother, but it still feels, I don't know what the word is. It still feels like 60 FPS with some small hiccups. Like, it doesn't feel perfect, but honestly, it feels very similar, if not slightly better than the graphic setting. It might just be this one, like, early moment in the game, because I don't know how much more enemies they're going to throw later in the game. It'd be interesting to try it, but at the minute, I'm quite early on, so there's not much to really test this on at the minute. But honestly, frame rate definitely feels smoother, but I don't think the graphic setting honestly takes enough away at the minute to really warrant having turned off, unless you really, really want to prioritize frame rate. So moving on from that, I will do some quick cut-by-cut comparisons and see if there's really any difference in the animations, the visuals, because just by changing the settings, I honestly can't tell. Looking at both of these, there isn't really much of a comparison to be made. The second one looks slightly better, but the changes are negligible. Again, looking at the effects, there's not really much to be said. The difference is just barely noticeable. Looking at the comparison of the two, Framerate does seem to be doing exactly what it says on the tin. It seems to have a higher frame rate, it seems to be more consistent. Graphics, on the other hand, seems to have a few stutters here and there, at least in the footage. It's hard to tell when you're playing, to be honest. But honestly, graphics just doesn't seem to have much of a change on the graphics in general. Looking at the footage, I honestly can't tell what the difference is other than frame rate when it comes to turning graphics on. It doesn't look like it improves the game enough to warrant it being its own slider. Whatever graphics improvements it brings, which honestly doesn't seem like any, there really doesn't seem to be any reason not to pick frame rate. In a game like this, you're going to want a smooth 60 FPS as much as possible. So be sure to stick to frame rate. I've been James, the Mayor of Jamestown. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, goodbye.